Today, we are here to tell you more about our candidates, or the official candidates, for the Calgary Flames head coaching position.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. My name's Jess, Belmosto, and I am joined by my partner in crime, Nick Zararis, and we are going to talk all about the coaching candidates, who is more likely than others, who's the wild card, and of course, what we like and what we don't like. But before we dive into that, today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. When you enter promo code LockedOnNHL, they'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. Nick, how are you doing today?
Like most people in the Northeast, I think I'm living in Dune. The sky is very hazy and orange.
Oh, what a time. I hope everyone in Canada is staying safe. Yeah. Wear your masks. Great time to use them. Shall we begin with...
Sure.
All right. So if you're watching, or if you're not watching on YouTube, I highly suggest it, just because we do have a nice little slideshow brought to you by Nick.
Yeah, no, you got to incentivize people to watch on YouTube. This is what we call added value in the business. We got to give you something that makes you want to go over there as opposed to just listening to us. So we get to use our nice little partnership that Locked On has with USA Today. We get to use their pretty pictures that are professional and look really nice. And yeah, so Ryan Huska, perceived internal, one of the main favorites for this job, somebody who's been in the organization for quite a while, coached in the AHL for multiple iterations before they even moved, when they were in Stockton, before they were the Wranglers. He's been the assistant coach for the last couple of years on the main roster with the main focus on the defense and the penalty kill. One of the finalists for the Red Wings job last year. Similar to the situation with Conroy, somebody who's pretty polished and is a bona fide candidate for a coaching job that may become available. So if the Flames don't decide to promote him, he may move on for greener pastures. That's kind of one of the perils of having so many internal candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even at one point last summer, it was reported that he accepted the head coaching position with Chicago, but that obviously
didn't happen.
True.
Yeah.
So he's still in Calgary, and I would say definitely pretty solid candidate. You know, if I saw his resume, I would absolutely give him a call back. And of course, Mitch Love.
Yes. This is the other internal guy that you really got to give. Well, there's another one, but he's in the third category as somebody who has who's coached at the NHL level before. But Mitch Love, really, really strong AHL resume. That's the main. This is somebody who's not that old. Like I was doing my cursory research, and I was reading a feature from a few weeks ago. We're like, he'll do the drills with the players during practice to kind of be like, I can still do this. I'm not that old, to kind of, lighten the mood so everybody's not miserable. So at 38, I think he's the youngest person on this list of candidates. Only 5 years as a coach, not that much experience, 3 years in junior hockey, 2 years in the AHL, 2 very good years in the AHL. He's won the Coach of the Year award 2 consecutive seasons. He's the only coach in the history of the AHL to win the Coach of the Year award 2 consecutive years. Wow. His first 2 years in the league. 3 guys have ever won it 2 times in a row. The one pushback you'll get on Mitch Love is that he's had the best goalie in the league. On the next slide, there's some stats there about the Wranglers this past season. They've got good numbers. The Wranglers were the best team in the AHL this past season. Best record, second most goals, best goals against in the league. The knock on that is, when you have somebody who's a bona fide NHLer who's developing in the AHL, they're really going to stand out in comparison to everyone else that's there, which is this is a real argument we get into this time of year when it comes to the playoffs in particular. You're seeing this discourse play out in real time in regards to Paul Maurice for how much credit does a coach get for a goaltender being really good, because It doesn't take a great coach to say, hey, can you save more shots? Because that's effectively all a coach can do to make a goalie play better. There's nothing you're going to be able to do other than maybe psych them up to get them to play better.
Yeah, and I think a lot of like I see both sides to that argument, and I do think it's just the goaltenders are just a fascinating case study in themselves. But I do think, as we saw this year with the Flames, coaching does play a big role in the attitude of the team and kind of how, just the vibes, really. So I do appreciate the energy that Mitch Love brings. And I believe it was on his personal Instagram where he goes out with the team and they do all sorts of team bonding. And I think that's great. And, if there are going to be guys making the jump from the AHL to the NHL, I would say that he is certainly an excellent candidate in order, to make sure that they have, number one, a smooth transition, but also to get the most out of them and not have this, oh, well, you spend X amount of games in the AHL, you should be able to do this at a higher level kind of mindset.
Absolutely agreed with you there. And this is something we typically see from teams when they move on from a coach. They go for the complete opposite because that's typically the way the pendulum swings back and forth, because you want to change dramatically what the players were just hearing. So you going from Darryl Sutter to Mitch Love is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Teams always do this. You go from the authoritarian to the players coach. And players coach can kind of be, a double-edged sword, because you see this happen from time to time where as soon as things start to go wrong, the players are very quick to throw the players coach under the bus and say, well, we didn't have enough structure. Well, he wasn't giving us enough guidance, even though they were, while things were going well, this is great. He treats us like adults. We're not lectured. And I forget what NHL player it was that was talking about their experience with the Flyers in the last year, that the 2 years that Alain Vigneault was there. He said the first year, which was 2019-2020, when the Flyers were pretty good, Carter Hart's rookie season, they won a round in the playoffs. They were pretty competitive against the Islanders, had a real chance to go into the conference finals. Said it was like a country club. Everybody showed up. We went about our business. We came home. Then the next season, when things went off the rails and really looked bad, oh, well, we need more discipline. We need a coach who's going to give us guidance and keep us in line. And then they kept Alain Vigneault. He lasted, I think, 15, 20 games into the fall and then got fired then. So that's the peril of the players coach. But one last thing on Mitch Love before we move on here. Hiring someone who's only 38 years old, that gives you real opportunity to grow with your coach, which is something that if the Flames are serious about the long term, really setting themselves up for the next 5 years, that's the move. You hire the young coach and you bank on the idea of potential, and that's not a guarantee, which scares general managers, which is why a lot of guys shy away. That's the word I was looking for. Stumbled there for a moment. Shy away from these newer guys who don't have as much experience. They would rather go with somebody who has a track record because you have some idea of what you're going to get.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's the double-edged sword and just kind of, unfortunately, the nature of the game. But coming up next, we are going to dive more into some of the candidates and who might be left on this list after the top two. But before we do that, I do want to take a second to tell you about our friends at Birddogs. At the top of the show, I told you guys that you can get your free tumblers when you place an order and use code LOCKEDONNHL. But you're probably like, why would I do that? What am I ordering? You're ordering the most comfortable pair of shorts that you can find for leisure, for casual wear, and you can dress them up even. I love mine. Mine are very comfortable, fun colors. Nick, have yours been getting a lot of mileage so far this summer?
They're basically all I wear. It's been pretty warm. I'm a big shorts guy, shorts and a cutoff shirt. That's pretty much what I'm wearing around the house when I'm not on camera doing shows. So yeah, definitely wearing my Birddogs a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, what better way than to kick off summer, then with a little retail therapy at birddogs.com. So all you have to do is head to birddogs.com/lockedonnhl and enter promo code LOCKEDONNHL. It is on your screen if you need a reminder to get your free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That is birddogs.com/lockedonnhl for a free Yeti style tumbler, and you won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. And thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. My name's Jess Belmosto. You can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto, and you can follow Nick Zararis at Nick Zararis. The wild card.
Yes.
Should I pull that up?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's get to it. There were no pictures of Patrick Roy on USA Today that we were able to use. So I had to use this picture from a ceremony the Canadians did a couple of years ago where he's standing in a suite next to Ken Dryden and someone else where he looks a little homeless. So sorry for the bad picture, but this is all we had the rights to be able to use. But Patrick Roy hasn't coached in the NHL in quite a while. People remember he won the Jack Adams for the first year he was the coach of the Avalanche. They really dramatically exceeded expectations. Then they finished in 7th place 2 consecutive seasons. And then he resigned in, I want to say it was late August, going into the 2017 season, on the premise that he did not have enough say in the player personnel decisions. He went back to junior where he had been coaching prior to that. He just won the Memorial Cup with the Ramparts, where he's been the general manager and coach for the last handful of seasons. This is somebody who's been linked to a handful of jobs. He was floated as a candidate for the Rangers job, floated as a candidate for the Flames job. This is more of an obligatory. We have to mention him. I don't think Patrick Roy is in play for the Flames here. He's not going back to Quebec. From what I understand, his contract expired and both sides agreed he wanted to look for a coaching job in the NHL again, so he won't be returning to junior hockey. I don't have a ton of interest in somebody who hasn't coached in the NHL in a while and has had a documented history of blow-ups and being really complicated and difficult to work with, both as a player and as a coach. Everybody remembers him banging on the glass and knocking the partition over. I think it was on Bruce Boudreau, but I might be wrong about that. I don't remember who the other coach was on the other side of the glass, but based on how the Flames just went and what we just said about Mitch Love going to the opposite end of the pendulum, going to another old school guy who's going to insist that hockey was better in the 90s when he played it seems counterintuitive to what the Flames say they want from a new head coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think someone that has been removed from the NHL and really the AHL as well for this long, they're not going to be in touch with what players need, what they desire, really the dynamics of how things are working.
Oh, you just ignited something in my brain here. This is the difference between a college football coach and an NFL coach, junior hockey versus the NHL, AHL, where there are really good college football coaches, but they can go to the NFL and really struggle. Think about Matt Rule going from Temple and Baylor to the Carolina Panthers, where he was entirely out of his depth because the culture is vastly different. When you are coaching college kids, you're a paternal figure. You are looking out for these kids. It's about life lessons, and you can get away with being more of an authoritarian because you have significantly more influence over these guys. They're not making money. When you are coaching junior hockey, these are kids living with billet families who don't make money, who are there to go to school and play hockey, and you can rule with an iron fist, and those kids are just going to have to suck it up because that's part of the deal. If you don't want to be on my team, okay, we'll kick you out of the house you're living in, and good luck getting another opportunity to play hockey. That's effectively why he's been able to be effective. You can be the crazy authoritarian in junior hockey because there's a lot less oversight, and those kids aren't making real money. In the NHL, you saw it happen with the Flames. Yeah, the Flames owed Darryl Sutter a lot of money. They had a handful of players say, yeah, we can't do this anymore if Darryl's coming back. The players make a lot more money than the coach does in the NHL. So that type of dynamic's just not going to play out the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, with NHL players, they do have more leverage. That's just the way the system is. Obviously more than like 16, 17-year-old kids. But I don't think the Flames have entertained this idea at all. I've seen people saying, well, they should call him. Why? There is no reason to call this man.
See, that I'll disagree with. It can't hurt to talk to him. I'm not saying hire him. I think you should talk to as many people as you possibly can, because even if you don't hire them, you can steal ideas from them, which is why you cast this is why you cast a wide a net as possible, because even if you don't end up hiring someone, they might say something you like. You might say, how can we implement that here? That's why you talk to as many people as possible. But I do agree with you. The reason I would agree with you, especially that so this time of year, you really have to read the tea leaves, because there is so much information out there. You really have to look at where it's coming from. A lot of the Patrick Waugh stuff is coming from the national reporters, Friedman, Drager, etc. And those are guys who are typically not as plugged in with the individual organizations. Those are guys who are typically more plugged in with the players and the agents. So sure, Waugh's agent probably is floating it out there. Hey, Patrick would like opportunities to coach at the NHL level. Get this out there, see what we can do about that. And that's my understanding of this perception, because there's not even a lot of jobs left. The Flames, the Rangers, and I'm drawing a blank. There's one more vacant coaching job right now. NHL coaching
that's a really good question.
There's one more I'm forgetting. This is terrible radio.
Technically Columbus, but
they're going to hire Mike Babcock. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I was right. It's only those two now, because Columbus is going to hire Mike Babcock. So the Rangers and the Flames. Yeah. I mean, this was not a great coaching cycle. There were not a lot of blue chip guys out there. Honestly, the most enticing candidate was Andrew Brunette, who doesn't seem to have gotten a lot of interviews with a lot of places.
No. And then he just went to Nashville, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. These are really pretty graphs that Nick has found. If you're watching on YouTube, can you explain any of this to me?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the first caveat of this is 8-9 years ago, and the NHL got the NHL didn't get in trouble for this, but a lot of the people who do statistics like this, like Micah, like Dom, kind of called the NHL out, because a lot of their numbers just didn't make sense, and the NHL kind of had to rein in the data the way it was being tracked. Some arenas were really bad at keeping track of the shot location data, which is where a lot of this information comes from. So this data is definitely not as refined as it would be as some of the candidates you're going to see in the next segment we have data from in the last 3 to 4 years. But this is the way a coach typically impacts their team based on the score of the game. So you see 0, +2, -2, -1, +1. That's the score of the game. So with the game tied, with them up by 2, them losing by 2, them losing by 1, them up by 1. And then the blue line is showing you when they choose to get defensive and in the situations like that. So typically speaking, the way we look at this is you want more expected goals and you want the other team to have less. So so expected goals is horizontal, expected goals against is vertical. So ideally you would be top right corner, meaning you're generating a ton of offense and you're not conceding a lot defensively. So Waugh's teams, it's funny. You would think the year that the Avalanche were actually good and made the playoffs, they would have had pretty good underlying statistics.
Yeah.
That chart bears out to you that they were a pretty defensively oriented team that got outchanced a lot, that didn't create a lot of offense, and was able to survive on the fruits of their goaltending. And then the 2 years where the team finished in 7th and 8th place that led to Waugh leaving and going back to junior hockey, same thing. Little bit better offensively that last season there in 2015, 2016. Wow, that was a long time ago. I thought he had coached in the NHL more recently than that, but the years are starting to blur together. But the main point here is that Patrick Waugh, very conservative coach, not very aggressive offensively, not generating a ton of offense, more in favor of trying to outlast the other team, relying on your defense and goaltending. That's the big idea from these charts.
Again, the exact opposite of what you're looking for.
Yes.
Do we want to wrap up this segment quickly?
We'll throw Kirk in the next one. Because he fits with those candidates who have coaching experience.
Wonderful. Okay, so we are going to take a quick break. Grab your snacks or whatever you need to get you through this last segment. We are going to quickly tell you about our friends at FanDuel. I have not done any sports betting since I cursed the Rangers, but right now you can head on over to FanDuel and make the most of the Stanley Cup Final and the NBA playoffs. Right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That is $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. They have great promotions every day. Their app is safe and secure, and my favorite part is that you get paid instantly and you can just cash out and leave. You don't have to, or you can keep going. It's entirely your call. And there's no better place to bet on all of the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And you should make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube, so at Locked On Flames, so you can see these pretty slideshows.
Hey, but whenever we can throw something at you that's more than just us talking, it helps you visualize things. I know I'm being taken back to, like, I forget what class it was in high school. There were like, yeah, you don't want more than 3 or 4 bullet points on your slides because people stop paying attention at that point, which is why most of the bullet points are like 3 or 4 words to not make your eyes glaze over. So yeah, Kirk Muller hasn't coached in the NHL as a head coach for more than a couple games in a long time. He was the interim coach of the Canadiens in the bubble when Claude Julien had the medical emergency, but he coached the Carolina Hurricanes a decade ago from 2011 to 2014. Very mediocre, didn't make the playoffs once. He's been an assistant with Montreal twice, St. Louis, and with the Flames the last couple of years. He was linked to the Flyers job last season. Not a whole lot to say. Not a long track record to go off of, but somebody who's hung around for quite a long time. Somebody who very clearly who's managed good personal relationships with a lot of different people and been able to latch on since having a pretty solid playing career.
Yeah, I would say that he is someone that, like, as an internal hire, is kind of at the bottom of that list.
Yes.
Just because I don't think that he can provide what the Flames need for a long period of time. It's not sustainable.
No. He's the least attractive of these the internal candidates based on his track record. He's an assistant coach, which, again, there's no shame in being an assistant coach. There's not a lot of hockey jobs in the world. To be an assistant coach in the NHL with multiple regimes, multiple organizations, that takes some type of skill and some type of people skills.
Always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
Exactly.
Okay. And that's okay here.
Yeah.
Okay. This guy's name, Travis Greene.
Yes. Somebody else in the same tier. Decent. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say what happened in Vancouver is not entirely his fault. I think a lot of people understand that Canuck situation was pretty untenable based on the fact that the front office and the ownership, they ate the cheese on the bubble playoffs. And granted, so did the Flames, to be honest.
Yeah.
The Flames also believed in the bubble playoffs and poached 2 really key components of those bubble playoffs. It would be very fitting if they brought in the coach of those bubble playoffs to lead a team that featured Evan Markstrom as well. But Vancouver was a mess. They got 1 good season out of them. They had 1 nice playoff run. They ran out of juice in that playoff run because Jacob Markstrom got injured and Thatcher Demko could only do so much. Decent track record in the AHL. Has floated around. Probably wants back in. He's only 52. He'll probably get another opportunity, but he might have to be an assistant somewhere before he gets to become a head coach again.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Put the training wheels back on. No shame in that.
Not even training wheels, just kind of like, show you're willing to pay your penance. It's not even like wanting to learn. It's just, I think a lot of organizations feel like these jobs don't come open that often. And if you're not willing to put some like surface level work in while you're not a head coach, you probably don't deserve an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you get a high five for sweeping the reigning Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah.
That's it. Congrats.
So this is Travis Greene's impacts. The Canucks, pure chaos. No defense, minimal offense. You'll see that a lot there in the fun column a lot, which is all offense, no defense, which means high-scoring games, which works when you have a really good goalie like a Demko or a Markstrom. But generally speaking, it's hard to survive that way. And the Flames have significantly better defensive personnel than the Canucks do. The Flames, a lot better than like Tyler Myers, OEL. Quinn Hughes is probably better than anyone on the Flames, but after Quinn Hughes, The Flames defense is entirely better. Like, I could argue all 6 of the defensemen who played regularly for the Flames last year are better than the second best defenseman on the Canucks in Tyler Myers. So maybe there's an argument that going with an offensive minded coach who can create a lot of offense might, with a better defensive core and competent goaltending. We don't even need the Flames don't even need good goaltending next year. They just need league average goaltending. I mean, we've said this more than once. If they had league average goaltending this year, they're in the playoffs over the Jets. They probably don't do anything against Vegas because Vegas is very good and up in the Cup final, but they could have made it if they had average goaltending.
Oh, good old Calgary and their goaltending. Yeah. But that does it for the pretty slideshow.
Yeah.
Oh, that is the wrong one.
There we go.
Everyone on YouTube.
We're learning.
Yeah, this is a whole new game for us. Don't make us coach anything. But do you think, I feel like the last 2 weeks have been, the Flames will definitely make an announcement soon.
That's how you know no one knows anything, because they keep moving the goalposts. They say maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. That's not reporting. You're just guessing.
Yeah, I'm
slowly
could guess.
losing my mind. Yeah, exactly. I can say they could hire him today. They could hire him tomorrow. They could hire him next week.
I mean, maybe they'll do like a 4 p.m. Friday press conference. No. I don't know. They would never.
They would only do that if they don't really feel good about the candidate. Like, I was talking with Hunter, who hosts the Penguins podcast, last week, right before on Wednesday, before the Penguins hired Kyle, and I said, if they don't announce it by Thursday, they're not going to announce it till next week, because nobody's going to announce something on a Friday and do a press conference on a Saturday. So more than likely, it's Wednesday today. If the Flames don't announce something by Thursday, we won't know until next week at least. Yeah.
And, maybe they're waiting for the Cup to be over. I don't know. Maybe things are done, but they just aren't.
From what I listened to on 31 Thoughts yesterday, what's today? Wednesday? On Monday, Elliot said they're doing the second round of interviews and they're talking to 4 or 5 people this week. And that was Monday, and today's Wednesday. They're moving slow. They don't feel very strongly about anybody, it would be my assumption here. That it's the same thing the way the Rangers the opening is developing, where if you felt good about one of these guys, you would have did it already, because it's been a month since the Ranger season ended a month ago. The Flame season ended 6 weeks ago. They fired Darryl, I want to say 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. Yeah. At this point, if you had somebody you really liked, I think you would have hired them by now. So I think they're really doing their due diligence. And maybe because you finally got the Flames also is a little different because they had to bring in a general manager first. Yeah. So maybe that changed some of the calculus for picking a coach. So maybe we say, because they hired Conroy 2 weeks ago? About 2 weeks ago. So he's had about 2 weeks versus a month like some of the other teams. So you give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt about how this is developing.
Yes, so we will just keep giving them time to get their stuff together the same way we did all season. It's just a never-ending game of waiting. But thank you, everyone, for sticking around with us today on Locked On Flames as we push through the offseason, heading towards naming a head coach, the draft, free agency, a little bit of a lull, and then we have camp. So we will be here. And we will be looking camp right in the eye before we know it. So make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, free on YouTube. Follow us on social media. Respective Twitter handles are on the screen, of course. And Nick, do you have any parting words for us?
Stay safe out there, people.
Yeah. Be smart.
Yeah.